but I was just doing some audio checks. So now we're going to technically start the podcast, and when I edit it down, I'll just cut out all the early stuff. So welcome everybody into AFL Podcast number 3. Tonight we are going to be talking about all things team building, abilities, X factors, archetypes. This is, if you listen to only one podcast before AFL starts, first of all, shame on you because we have some killer content. If you only listen to one podcast, this is the one you're going to listen to, especially if you took Madden 20 off, because the years of just looking at speed, throw power, and pass rush moves are over. They still count. They're still very important. We're going to get into it tonight, but there's other factors you need to decide when you are picking out the right team for you in Madden and determining how you're going to build your team. Now, admittedly, I played Madden, I'd say a medium level in Madden 20, but my most active months were the months that we were all still learning the development stuff. And I am not as well versed in it as guys like Joker and Danny, who refuse to come on the podcast because we're not even quite sure if they're real people or not. So, and Magic obviously took all of Madden 20 off. So I have reached out to several of our AFL owners who did play a lot in Madden 20. Stokes and Magic are obviously on. You guys know who they are. No introduction needed.
Can we get one though?
Okay.
Might not be needed, but it's nice.
Actually, you don't, because Stokes is on a strict schedule. First, we have Chef. If you're on Facebook, it's Donald Anderson. He is a commissioner in a league that we all know of, E-Dubs League, in our little circle, but he's a commissioner in that league. He's a very active Madden player. He's going to be a great resource for us on this show. Welcome to the podcast, Chef.
What's happening? How you doing?
Doing well. And Mike Lara, who is one of the commissions over in PS4, which we often refer to as kind of like our brother league in AFL. Lara, how you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. I definitely appreciate you guys coming on because RVD had to back out. He had some stuff going on, and that would have left Stokes as our only real expert. And Magic will tell you that too much Stokes is never a good thing. So we like our Stokes in low doses. So having you guys on will be a good thing. So, but I am going to start with you, Stokes. I have been trying to describe abilities to the Madden crowd that. Let's assume tonight, okay, for the sake of this podcast, let's assume that we're talking to somebody who took Madden 20 off. So if you played Madden 20, there's going to be a lot of this stuff that's obvious to you, a lot of the stuff that you already know, but maybe there's stuff that we teach you tonight that you don't already know. But we're going to do this podcast assuming that we are talking to an audience that don't even know what the abilities in Madden do. Stokes, when I say to you abilities in Madden, how would you summarize them, what they are, what they mean to the game?
I know you've mentioned it before, but it's in the reference to like badges on 2K. They give guys the ability to do something better, or to negate things, or just make them do a certain thing better. Like running backs have like jukebox that allows them to have faster juke moves, or spin cycle, faster spin moves. You and joystick allows you to wiggle a little bit more and quicker. I would say it's more agility, essentially. Mm-hmm. And then you have pass rushers who have their pass rush abilities like edge threat, finesse specialist, power specialist, and it all just allows them to do those types of moves quicker and more effectively. And there are some abilities that are good and some that are bad. So it's just like in any video game, any like RPG type thing. There are good things that you can use and also bad things.
So just to clarify, when you say good and bad, would you mean in a sense that some work better than others, or do you mean that some are actually bad for a franchise setting?
Both. So I'll just use a defensive back, for example. A cornerback getting the ability lumberjack, so that gives them the ability to cut stick players more effectively. Whereas if they got universal coverage instead of lumberjack, that would give them the ability to play better man and zone. So that's where you get the gamble. You can get one or the other, and if you end up with lumberjack, you have a sucky ability as opposed to universal coverage.
All right. So before we go any
So
further into this, I want to say something. If you took Madden 20 off, you might hear Stokes say lumberjack, and you might immediately think, I am so far behind. I don't know what any of this stuff means. I would totally advise you to go into our Discord, click on, where did I post that? Is it under Madden 20 News? Yeah, Madden 20 News. I posted it at 2:42 on Wednesday. It's an article written by Madden School, which is every superstar's X factor and ability, and it is basically a table of contents for every ability in Madden. If you have a question about what they do, um, it'll answer so many of your questions. Because I'm just being dead honest with you. I know what the big ones do, but I couldn't have told you what lumberjack was before Stokes first described it. I couldn't tell you what 80% of the ones that are in that article that was written by Madden School, but it's all there for you information-wise. Now, Chef, you heard what Stokes said. Is there anything that you would throw in on top of that, or just what is your description of abilities in Madden?
Stokes hit the nail on the head. Everything we were talking about when I first got on, it was like the first thing I thought of when he started talking about the good abilities compared to the bad ones. Like as far as good ones, I know everybody wants the Moss ability. Moss ability, of course, you think of Randy Moss just going one-on-one with a DB and the QB just lobbing the ball to him and he goes up and he catches it regardless of where it is. That's an ability that like somebody like I think Hopkins has it. I just got it with Hollywood in the league I was in, which is funny because he's 5'9" with the Moss ability. So imagine that. But yeah, that's a good one to have there. But then there's like a bad one for like running backs. Like if your running back has leapfrog, like basically you get to hurdle your opponent. And I mean, how often do you really want to jump over somebody? So that's kind of a lame one, I guess you want to call it, or one that's least to be desired. Whereas everybody wants human joystick, jukebox, spin cycle, that kind of thing. So that's all. Same stuff, though.
Magic, I would urge you anytime you have a question to hop in because any question that you're having is probably one that people that are listening that didn't play in Madden 20 are having. So anytime something pops into your head based on what these guys say, feel free to interrupt me and hop in. Now, Laura, PS4 had
okay, I'm ready.
Go ahead.
So I guess I'll just play the role of someone who doesn't know what's going on as a voice of the people. Now, if I get this, what happens if I get this lumberjack and I don't want it? Can I give it back?
Oh Lord.
Or am I stuck with it?
I mean, now see that's a touchy topic because I'm in a couple of different leagues and like how this gets handled. There's a thing they call re-rolling. Re-rolling basically is just changing the position of your player and then switching them back because every time you switch their position, their ability changes. Like if you move your wide receiver to defensive back real quick and then save it and then put him and then move him back from DB to wide receiver, he might have had Moss and en route master or something like that, and then like once he goes back, he might have something else completely different. That's what like in one league that I'm in, I won't put anybody out there, but they give the option to re-roll it as much as you want, and until you get what you want, and then by season 3, everybody had the OP abilities. Everybody had not first one free. What is the one with double me? Everybody had Moss. Everybody had jukebox, and it was just ugly. So
that's basically if you have a left outside linebacker, you go in there, you move him to right outside linebacker, and then you roll the dice on his ability changing. Correct?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Something as simple as just moving a person from like one side of the line to the other. That juggles their abilities and shuffles them again.
Okay, now Laura, I know PS4 did rerolls in Madden 20. I totally respect the fact that you're probably not in position to make any kind of announcement on what PS4 is going to do in Madden 21, but I'm sure you have some opinions on rerolls, so I'll just throw it to you. What are your thoughts on rerolling? And I'll just feel free to say whatever you're comfortable with, but we understand that you're probably not ready to like say what PS4 is going to do in Madden 21.
Well, last year, so for our first 6 seasons or so, we didn't let people reroll. We basically gave them one move per season per player. Like if you wanted to change their position, you could change them once, not like change them one and go back. It was whatever was legal. You could change it once and then that was it. And whatever you got, you got. And so you could do it one per season. Once we got to like season 7 or something like that, we allowed them to do one unlimited one just because it was like late February and the downtimes of Madden, and we just wanted to keep people interested. But I definitely am not a fan of unlimited rerolls because I felt like once we did that, everybody got the best thing, and at that point, then everybody's team becomes similar. Basically, everybody wants the same thing, right? And the thing I really liked about the abilities early on is it made everybody's team a little different. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think for a lot of guys that are listening to this show that didn't play in a league last year, PS4, especially if you're a member of the AFL page, PS4 was a big point of reference for you of what was going on. And due to things like COVID, not being AFL, so guys had more time that normally are in two leagues. The burnout wasn't there; they were just in one league. PS4 went like 13 seasons last year, so abilities, as you can imagine, in a league that goes 13 seasons, got pretty out of hand, and teams all had the mossed receivers and the quarterbacks that could roll out of the pocket really fast, and it did turn into a little bit of a circus. I think anybody that's in AFL, really, I would even say guys in PS4. I don't see PS4 going 13 seasons again. I mean, I'm knocking on whatever I can find that this COVID thing is a thing of the past by the time this time next year rolls around, hopefully.
Yeah.
But as far as AFL goes, with our slower advances, I think if we go August to June, we're talking 5 seasons. So I don't think we're going to be in a situation where everybody has a team just full of superstars with abilities. The reroll is definitely a conversation we're going to have in AFL if it's something we want people to have or not, but that does kind of transition into a different topic. Okay, Stokes, or anybody really, but I'm trying to kind of take advantage of Stokes being on because I know he has to leave a little early tonight. Archetype. So when I re-roll a player, the thing I could get is the one that's tied to his archetype, right? So I'm looking at Isaiah McKenzie on the screen right now if you're watching this on stream, and he's obviously not a superstar player, but you can see the 4 archetypes for receivers. There's deep threat, slot, route runner, and physical. If as I'm building Isaiah McKenzie along, and if you want to pretend that he's a rookie with superstar potential, I'm building him along. I want to pump skill points into the archetype that has a path to the abilities I want, correct?
Yes. So, as far as Madden 20 was concerned, each of the archetypes had basically a tree of abilities that you would get at whatever level. So once you reach 80, if deep threat is your number 1 archetype, then you get one of the deep threat abilities, and then if after you go to 90, to forget his other ability, if you change him to route runner, then when he hits 90, he can get a route runner ability. Or if you pump it into deep threat, it'll get the deep threat abilities. So it's all about what level you are with the archetype once you reach the overall where you unlock an ability.
So when you reach the 90, I think it might be 85 this year, but that's a different, whatever it is, whenever you reach that point, is it whatever archetype for you is the highest at that point, or is it what you have pumped the most into since the last archetype?
Yes, it's whichever one is the highest. So if deep threat is the highest, or what else? Route runner or slot, I think is the other one.
Yeah, and then physical.
Yeah, so whatever one is the highest, that's what you'll get your pull from as far as abilities are concerned.
Okay, so let's say I drafted a Julian Edelman clone who comes into the league, he's superstar ability, and he's obviously a default slot archetype receiver, and let's say he comes in as an 80 overall slot receiver. But in the particular Madden game that we're playing, we find out that all the glitchy abilities are tied to deep threat, but maybe he's only a 70 deep threat. Is the smart move at that move to know that I want him to get the deep threat, so even though his attributes point to more being a slot receiver, I still want to pump the XP into deep threat?
Yeah, so yes, you should, but it's really difficult at times when you're so far away from another archetype. So if you say the slot's at 80 and the deep threat is at 70, as you pump deep threat, slot may raise a little bit. So you may not catch slot until you get to maybe 86 overall, because slot's going to raise as you raise deep threat, because all the attributes, they all correlate in some way or another. So it will take a while if you have that much of a discrepancy. It happens that way with offensive linemen. Like, you'll raise pass protector to 78, but run blocker or whatever goes up to 81, and you've been trying to change it to a pass protector. So I don't know the formula, but it can get frustrating at times.
Okay, so abilities are obviously important. They are exclusive to players that are superstar or superstar X Factor, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so Ed Oliver, a defensive player on the Bills, is star. How do I make him superstar? What paths are there for me if I'm the Bills or any team you're controlling? What path is there as the owner of a team to get that guy up to the next level? Chef, maybe you want to take this because I know you probably have
Sure.
experience with
Sure, I
that.
can get on that one. Okay, but from what I've seen, what I've noticed, what happens is if, let's say, like you say, if Ed Oliver's doing his thing, he got a couple sacks, couple tackles in the game. He has a great game. That following week, they get like a development text up in the menus. It'll say, hey, coach, last week I did my thing. This week I want to prove that I'm the best defensive lineman in the game. X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. And they'll give you a set of goals to reach, like get 2 forced fumbles, sacks, or whatever. And then if you reach those goals, then you gain the development. Like, you go up from that point. You say he's a star, then he will move to superstar at that point. And then they happen kind of randomly, maybe like maybe 2 or 3 times in the season, depending on how well you're playing. And from that point on, like I say, if you hit the goals, then you move up to the next development. But if you don't, then you just miss out in that case. And then, like, that following week, you get like a follow-up text, and it'll say, like, if you didn't get it, coach, I'm sorry, I dropped the ball, and then that's the end of it.
So the development game was something I definitely didn't understand last year. To me, I didn't realize that playing well up until that point could give you a better odds at a development game. I thought it was just a roll of the dice. Oh, I got lucky. So let's say you get Jonathan Taylor, the Colts running back, who I think is probably going to be star. If you have a game where you have 200 yards and 4 touchdowns, then you've really increased your odds at getting a development game soon.
Pretty much. I mean, I don't think. I think you maybe had to do maybe 1 or 2 games. That may be the roll of the dice there, because it may not necessarily, like, sometimes it may happen like after that one monster game, or it may happen after a couple of them. So maybe by week 3, JT would be ready to say that, be ready to take that step to the next development at that point.
Okay, so we've talked about abilities. We talked about superstar versus superstar X Factor. We've talked about archetype. We can get more into this if we get more questions. But Laura, with superstar X Factor, there are superstar X Factor. I don't know if you want to call them abilities, but they're in-game boosts. I guess they're abilities. What are the difference between those and these abilities that we're talking about?
So for X Factor, you have to reach some statistical level before it'll activate. And then it'll activate until you've hit whatever. So, like, say for a pass rusher, you might need to get 3 sacks, and then suddenly they've got their X Factor activated. And then, then they're going to get to the quarterback a lot easier. And then to get it to go off, you got to get like a first down, basically. So if you're not paying attention to that and they go, then you get guys that would just take a bunch of sacks instead of just strategically getting the yards to get them to, get rid of that. So, but it's not something that's activated all game long. So usually somebody's going to get their X Factor activated like once during a game.
Mm-hmm.
So, Stokes, would it be fair to say that abilities are the badges where they're kind of baked into your attributes? You're not quite sure, how much of a weight they roll in the overall dice roll. But the X Factor abilities, I can't remember what it's called in 2K, but
Takeover.
Takeover. Thank you. Where your meter starts
Sorry,
flashing, and for like the next 2 or 3 possessions, you just get the ball to that guy.
Yeah, essentially that is basically how people play. They have their X factors. They try to force in the ball, or whatever the case is, or maybe it's just a product of how they play, and then they end up with the X factor activated. And with wide receivers, when they are activated, a lot of theirs is if they go three passes without a target, so that the game is forcing you to force the ball to them as well. And with running backs, you can't get tackled for a loss, or quarterbacks can't get sacked or have an incomplete pass, or whatever the case is. So, I mean, there are paths to get it turned off, essentially, but it's still a little bit of work.
So let's say, Stokes, you and I are playing. I got the Rams. Aaron Donald gets activated. And so you'll see this by his star will be flashing on the screen. You can see this too, even if you're the other team. Does it tell you what you have to do to basically get him deactivated?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you don't have to sit there and guess or pause the game or go to Google and look up Madden School. It'll tell you, get a first down, and you're fine.
Yeah, but let's say it would be 10 yards or 30 yards or 20 yards that you have to gain. And the fortunate thing about that is if you have 29 yards and you get sacked, it doesn't take away those yards. So if you gain one more yard, you're still good as far as getting them out of the X factor thing.
Okay, interesting. So would you say I'll just throw it to all three of you. I'll answer as short or long as you want. When picking a team for Madden, is it more important to make sure you have superstars, or is it more important to make sure you have superstar X factors? Now, obviously, the X factor players are gonna be better, but are the abilities a bigger factor in the game than the X factor abilities? And go ahead, I'll start with you, Stokes.
So you can only have a maximum of 3 X factors going per game. So if you actually had 11 X factor players on your defense, only 3 of them would gain things towards their X factor. But their superstar abilities will stay, but they can't activate their X factor. And the same way on offense. So even if you have all of the guys all your skill players are X factor guys, only 3 would be they'd show up on your screen as far as progress towards their X factor. So abilities, I mean, at any point they are paramount because they allow guys to do things that they normally shouldn't or couldn't, and that's why many people just try to focus on getting superstar guys or young guys that are star and hope that they can get a development game.
Mm-hmm.
Chef, would you agree with that? That abilities?
Yeah, absolutely. X Factor is, like I said, you got to hit your goals to get that activated. Whereas superstar abilities, they happen regardless, no matter what's going on. So if you got 5 or 6 superstars on your team with no X Factors, that's cool. You can still play the game with no worries and still have high performance from everyone. Whereas you may just have one guy like your quarterback may just be your X Factor and everybody else's stars are below. Not to say that they're bad, but it's not a whole lot of extra bonuses happening for you. It's just you're doing what you can with that one player in that case.
So if there's a limit to how many X factors you can have on one team, you can have more than one X factor, more than that limit of players that are X factor, but you have to actually choose the ones that get activated, right, for the game going in?
No, the game decides which ones you get.
Okay.
You have no choice in the matter.
Yeah, you do. If you go to the player screen, you can tell which 3 ones you want activated before the game.
You know what? I think he's right. I think I know what he's talking about. Okay.
Wait a second.
On the main screen.
I'm learning something new. This is July.
When you choose your playbooks and everything, it's there, right? I've never had to do that because I've never had that many X Factors on the same team at the same time because I'm kind of sorry. But I think you do it there, right?
Huh.
So, Laura, you're talking about the depth chart that has the players' faces on it, right? Like the one that looks similar to Mutt?
Yeah, so if you go all the way to the side, there's slots that you can select.
I keep forgetting that I'm on Madden, so I can show everybody while Laura's talking me through this.
Cody just said, you could choose what 3 X Factors to activate.
Oh, I'm looking at this right now. Huh.
So you go to...
Wow.
You go to your team.
Yeah, I'm seeing this right now. This is happening live. Yeah. Huh.
Stokes want to reset on.
Indeed.
I never had that many to have that problem. I was just going with what I had and kept going.
You learn
say,
something new every day.
I got one on the Bills, so this is a bad example to use.
I mean, the Titans only have 2. So, I mean, shoot. No, I'm lying. Only 1. Just Derrick Henry. That's it. Because Bayard is a superstar. So, yeah. So, shit. I understand.
Shout out to Reese. Reese is listening, and he's in our YouTube chat. Said hi to everybody. I asked him if he wanted to come on, but he said he's just enjoying listening, and maybe he'll come on next time. He could have been a good resource for this type of conversation because I know he played a lot of Madden 20. Magic, how you doing? Any questions popping up while we're talking here?
They're getting answered as you guys talk through it, actually.
Perfect. Okay, well, here's a question I bet a lot of guys have. We're all at the process of trying to figure out what team we want for Madden 21. And we can go round table style. We'll start with Stokes again. How much should I prioritize abilities? And let me say, like, a team like the Jaguars, to me, they look like the kind of team that I would have just jumped on in Madden 19 or 18. They have speed everywhere. They have a young quarterback. They have young, fast receivers. They have a draft of they have tons of draft picks coming up, and they have what I think was a really good draft. But what they don't have is a barrel full of superstar players. They have star players, but they have those attributes that we all love. They have speed, size, youth, tons of draft picks. Is that team significantly more devalued than it was, say, 2 years ago, or am I overrating the abilities right now? Stokes?
No, I don't think you're overrating the abilities at all. And you're right. A couple of years ago, they would have been obviously a great team because they had the youth and the great players that you could build with. But they don't have as many players that can have those abilities out the box. And when you're dealing with, our slowed pace, you're not going to have you can't just say, well, I'll just build them up and then, I'll be good to go. You have to be able to win. Well, most people want to win right now. And at that point, they don't have a lot of guys that have abilities. So a team that has, a superstar pass rusher or superstar defensive backs is probably more appealing than they are because they don't really have that. You have to play with what you get aside and not worry about abilities so much with a team like the Jags, for example.
Are you saying the Jags is just a group of guys?
Hey, buddy.
No.
I do have a real question, though.
Leave the dad jokes. Leave the dad jokes to me.
Hold up. Go ahead.
So, you get ability at 80 overall? Is that right? Or is that something else that's 80?
All right, so Madden 20, it was 80 and 90, I'm pretty sure.
85.
Okay, 85 and 90 for most positions.
Okay.
Once you hit that level, you get the ability, and then you hit 90 and you get the other ability. If you fall below 90, you lose that 90 overall ability, and then if you go below 85, you lose that one as well.
Right. Okay. And does this mean you can draft players who already come in with abilities? So I guess this is more of a draft class question than an abilities question.
So most of the rookies, they don't come in at a high enough overall to have an ability, and for one thing, but the rookies that have either star or superstar X factor, they come in as hidden for their development, and they don't unlock their development until 500 plays. There was a glitch in Madden 20 that didn't allow any of the players or some players to accrue those plays, so you had to wait until the next season for their development to unlock. I don't know whether that's going to be the case in Madden 21, but that's something that was a factor in Madden 20.
Now, Laura, I know a lot of guys in PS4 have been researching some of the new nuances of Madden 21, the things that make it different than Madden 20. And one thing I picked up from being in chat is maybe that's a little different this year, where guys that you draft will come in with abilities because of the new 70 and 85 threshold. Is that accurate?
Yes, but they'll probably still come in as hidden. So until you've hit that marker of downs played, then they won't have the ability until then.
What difference will the 70 to 85 threshold make? Because in my mind, it's like, oh, well, I'll just get them faster, so I'll 70 and 85. But is it actually a bad thing because you don't get to necessarily build the player along the path that you want?
I think it kind of depends on what you're drafting, I guess. If he comes in at the archetype that you want, sure, then it's good. But if not, then he's going to have an ability on something that you don't want necessarily. So it's going to just depend. I think it'll end up being there'll be more unique players, I think, because there'll be people who'll get one archetype for one ability, and then by the time they get to the next one, they'll be on their next archetype if they choose to change them around.
It seems like a good fix to me because in the example I used earlier, this made-up Julian Edelman clone, it doesn't seem realistic that you should be able to turn him into a deep threat and give him Most. So I think maybe you guys answered this earlier, but just for clarity, if at the first checkpoint, so it's 70, if he's got slot, can he get deep threat at 85 if deep threat is overtaken slot by then, or is it once you've chosen your path, that's your path?
No, it's whatever you have when you hit that ability threshold, basically.
Okay. So even if you're at slot at 70, if the deep threat's what you want and you're at that at 85, that's what you'll get?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right,
Gotcha.
so what some people tried to do was with some defensive tackles, if you had them at run stopper when they get the 85 or the first ability, you could hope to get a run stopper ability, and then you spend the rest of their time pumping into their pass rusher abilities, and then when they hit the 90, now they have a pass rusher ability, so they have a run stopper ability and a pass rushing ability, and that allowed them to double dip a little bit. So it's very similar to that. It's just a matter of what the highest overall is when you get to that point.
All right. I feel like we have covered abilities, X factors, archetypes. I think we've covered that pretty well. What else? Is there anything I'm missing? Has regression changed? Is there a certain age threshold where once a player gets to a certain age, you want to get rid of them? It will start. I don't want to throw too many questions
Not
at
me.
you. Well, not you, Stokes. We know how you love those. How you love those old guys.
Oh boy.
Chef, have you noticed regression starting at certain ages, or does it just depend on the player?
Man, it's a combination of both. It's not like I remember a few Maddens ago where like once your receiver hit 30, he went from 93 speed to 88 immediately. I forget which one that was, but no, it's nothing that dramatic, nothing that drastic. It was more or less like I use Earl Thomas as like prime example because I mean he was already fairly old when you get him as a stock player. But like after a couple years, even though the only thing that you had little regressions here and there, -2 on speed, -2 on hit power, little, but it's not anything dramatic and drastic at one time. It's gradual from like 31 on to the point when they retire, whenever that is. So like it's not like a super big dip off where you just like, oh my God, I can't use this guy anymore.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd say it's a slow burn rather than the precipitous drop, for sure.
Yeah, it is tied to your development though. So like your superstar guys aren't going to start regressing until like 30, X Factor's 31, and your normal players are like 28 to 29.
Interesting.
So you kind of know where they're going to start, and then it's like they said, it's a pretty slow at start, and then once you start getting into like 33 or so, it drops pretty dramatically about that time.
So I know your attributes can go down. Do you ever lose? Do you ever go from X Factor to Superstar, or Superstar to Star, or is it once you've reached that threshold, you're good?
No, there's no development regression. At least
nope, you can be a 60 overall X Factor.
Well, apparently they have I don't know if it's X Factors or Superstars now that are tied to kick returners in Madden, because Andre Roberts is a superstar now. Stokes.
Oh, I'll be there.
There's 2 kick returners, Roberts and Cordero Patterson. But it's basically like they have whatever the juke one is, the one that what's his face, Dalvin Cook has.
Jukebox.
Yeah, they basically have
Ooh.
jukebox on kick returns, but they don't have it on like regular plays.
Huh.
Oh, that's cool. That's slick. Okay.
Yeah, it
That
throws
gives
him a little bit of a bone for being a good returner.
Yeah.
All right. I think scouting has been this way for a while. You get a certain number of points, and you cannot choose what. No, yeah, you get like 3 different levels of scouting a player here. So, like this, if you're looking at my screen here, you have this DeMarcus Saxton, and what you have here is this is like an unscouted draft board. So it basically gives you an estimate of where these guys fit. So like these guys with the first round are all unscouted first round talents. Now those will not hold up. To actually figure out what their true overall grade is, you have to spend scouting points. So the very first scouting point, like the player information, is going to cost you 15 points, and then the next one's going to cost you 10, next one's going to cost you 5. If you buy all 3, then you find out their true talent, and that what you found out is this guy that was projected as an early first rounder now is a mid first rounder, and that's important because my understanding is a lot of the superstars and superstar X factors are the guys that once you've scouted are the guys that have the high end first round talent. So I would tell you, as far as scouting goes, first of all, do it every week because you lose half of your available points if you just save it up and wait till after the combine. Every week that advances, you lose half of your points. And then I would also tell you to focus on positions that you need. So if you take over the Bengals in Madden 21, I would not waste a dime on scouting quarterbacks. And then you do get scouting points as the offseason goes on too. So there's not going to be a situation where like the combine happens, you find out that this receiver that ran a 4.2, you don't have any scouting points to find out if he's any good. You get to scout after the combine, so you're never going to be hung out to dry. So that's kind of cool too. I don't think there's too much into scouting because I do believe it's been like this for a while, but I do want to talk a little bit about progression as far as archetypes go, because there was a time a couple Maddens ago where you could just be like, all right, well, I'm going to save up and buy speed. Speed's super expensive. That's what I'm going to buy. Or I'm going to buy throw power. It's not quite as expensive. But now you don't actually get to choose what you are. Let me go back to the Bills because I know they had a player to progress. This is an AFL sim, by the way, so I'm going to give the Bills are completely out of the playoff race, so me upgrading Isaiah McKenzie's not going to move the meter anywhere. But so when you go to upgrade him, so Isaiah McKenzie, if you look down at the bottom, to these, all you do is you pump points into the archetype. And right now it says I have 1 skill point that I can add to any of these archetypes. And if you look down there at the bottom, it says top skill, so catch and traffic, spec catch, release, route running, all that stuff. It's not guaranteed that those are going to be the attributes that get increased. I'd say more often than not you get more attributes than just those, but it's not like, okay, if you want Isaiah McKenzie just to have the best hands in football. If you keep pumping it into slot, every time you do it, he's going to go up and catch. It doesn't work that way. There will be times when you upgrade him and it doesn't move his catch. But I'm going to go ahead and throw it into deep threat here. And you can see deep route running, release, and spec catch. And then you pump it in there, and we got 4 upgrades. Deep route, release, spec catch, just like they predicted, and then you got 1 for catching. So now he's a 74 overall on that. So that's basically how that works. I like it because I don't think you should just be able to pick and choose attributes to work on. I like the fact that there is some RNG involved there. Let's see. I'm going to kick it back to Magic real quick. Magic, any questions popping up as we're going through this?
So what team would you guys suggest someone takes if they haven't decided about a list yet, hypothetically?
Good question.
Apparently not that good question.
Probably my bad. I probably should have thrown it to somebody. It's kind of a wide range because it depends on the player, but I don't want to put any of you in a situation where you're like revealing what your lists are. So I'm gonna pick on Stokes first, and Chef, I can tell you're willing to say it because you've already turned in your list. But Stokes, who would be your best team in Madden if you don't? Maybe let's rule out Kansas City and Baltimore. We all know everybody likes them. Who would be your best team beyond that?
I would say probably the 49ers. They have Nick Bosa, and I he's amazing in the game. I mean, just in Madden 20, so I imagine they're gonna pump him up even more. I mean, and the defense is good. They've got speed everywhere, and the offense is getting better as far as the skill position. As for CFM, Jimmy Garoppolo is probably not the guy you want at quarterback, considering he's probably 28, 29 maybe in the game, and he's not going to be he's not going to have a good development. But you can still get a different quarterback, and the rest of the positions are just great. And then Kittle, Mostert, and Coleman. I mean, the team is really good. I really like the Niners.
Okay, Chef, let's say you're in a league that isn't doing lists and you got the 15th pick in the draft, okay? So like the Niners, all the teams that we know are beastly are gone. At that point in time, are you looking for one particular ability? Is there something like escape artist? Is there an escape artist quarterback? I got to get me one of those. Or is there a certain ability you're looking for at that point? Or is there are you just looking for the team that has the most superstars? Or at that point, are you looking for something else?
I guess it depends on what type of player you are. If you're the type of player that wants to like get in the game and just like wants to compete and contend immediately, and you're looking at star power, you're looking towards the like the Seattle, for example, like maybe the Seahawks are still on the board. Russell Wilson is there. DK Metcalf. You got guys who can actually ball out and get you 10, 11 wins in the season. Or if you're one of those guys that wants to, I'm gonna take a step back this season. I'm gonna pick a team that I can develop, get going. Like to jump on what Stokes said a little while ago, the Jaguars was a good team to pick for 20. I can't speak on after the Jalen Ramsey trade, but before the Jalen Ramsey trade, the stock Jags was a good team to use. For everything because they had everybody with abilities. Like you had superstars, like Josh Allen had a superstar, or Calais Campbell. Granted, he's older, he was like a superstar X Factor. Jalen Ramsey at the time, of course, he's X Factor. He's the best corner in the game at the time. So you had those superstar abilities and X Factors, but you had young guys, Yannick Ngakoue, Telvin Smith, and a couple of the other guys. Chalk, thank you, on offense. Chalk, and I love D.D. Westbrook personally. I liked him more than Chalk when I used him, because I had the Jags in another league I was in, and I built them up pretty good. They were a pretty strong team, So that's just to count on what you said there. If I'm at 15 or 16, like in the midpoint, unless the Titans are sitting there still, which they probably would have been if it was 20, but I like to get in. Like the first thing I'm looking for personally is like, do I have to build a quarterback? I'm not. It depends on how I'm playing. Like I know in one league I'm in, I like to have a quarterback that's actually ready to go. I like to have Aaron Rodgers. I like to have a Russell Wilson. I'm ready to go with one of them. But if I want to develop a guy, like all right, I could take Jacksonville again. I'm using the Jaguars. You got Gordon Minshew back there. You're not going to build your team around Gordon Minshew. So you holding out until the off season, and you can draft your star quarterback from there. Your franchise quarterback can go from there. So I'm looking for development at 15, unless the Titans are there, and I'm going to try to win with Derrick Henry and stiff arm everybody. So that's basically it.
So at that point in the draft, it's kind of like the Baskin-Robbins theory. It's just whatever flavor that you want is the one you get.
Yep,
Laura,
you look at that, and I guess you're looking at like who else. I mean, I don't want to say it's ducking, but you look at who else is in divisions. Like if I got a division with like two more, like Stokes and Stokes is twin, do I really want to get in that division with them?
It's too much Stokes, way too much Stokes.
You know what I'm saying? Whereas if I got a division with Magic and two other bums, I'm gonna jump in and play ball.
Wow!
With them,
Wow!
Really unnecessary.
We are extending your contract for the next podcast.
Magic, I miss playing with you, man. So So
No, he's not. You are a bum.
That's
Funny story about Magic. He actually respects you more if you talk shit to him on the podcast.
Oh, word. Okay.
Because then it opens the door for him to talk it back without feeling like he's going to hurt your feelings.
Oh, good. That's even better. You got to have thick skin with me. I know Reese would understand that. I know you can watch it.
All right, Laura, we're talking about the teams in that 15-16 range. Chef did mention maybe you want to keep an eye on who your division foes are. That the guys in AFL don't have that luxury with the lists. You're kind of blind picking. What strategy would you be using, say, if you were somebody that wasn't confident that you were going to get a KC, a Baltimore, a San Francisco? What aspects of the team would stick out to you as priorities for picking a middle tier team?
Well, I mean, the abilities are important, but Madden's still Madden, you know? Like, don't lose sight of that would be my thing. Like, you still want your speed, you still want all the stuff that you would usually want. I'd also point out you want to keep an eye on cap. They did adjust how the cap works a little bit this year. So the quarterbacks do ask for, like, $30 million a year. So, you know, that's just something to keep in mind if you're looking for a developmental team or something like that.
Even the backups.
Yeah, like even like middle range quarterbacks are asking for like real quarterback money. So
Yeah.
So along those lines, does the market? I'm sorry, Laura, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I had a quick question. Does the market reset? So let's say Carson Wentz hits free agency for some reason, and Magic's like, I need a quarterback. So even though the market's telling me he wants $30 million a year, I got to get Carson Wentz, so I'm going to give him $50 million a year. Does the next big quarterback that come up be like, whoa, I need $50 million a year too, or is that logic not built into the game?
it is to a degree. Like I definitely noticed that the contracts went up, but it's not like if one guy signs for a huge contract, then everybody's going to ask for that.
Okay.
So, like, I did notice that, you know, especially early on when everybody went crazy in free agency, not thinking about consequences, and they're just like, oh, I'm going to pay this guy a ton, and then suddenly, like, a bunch of guys were asking for a lot of money. But it wasn't just like one guy signed one big contract. It felt like it was kind of like a gradual thing.
So one strategy you could use, especially in a league like AFL, where four to five seasons looks to be our max, is you could take a team that took a quarterback this year, like a Jordan Love, a Tua, a Herbert, and just know that you're going to have them cheap for the duration of the franchise. So as long as you are successful in building them, you're going to have the most expensive position on your roster covered at a very cheap price.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate all of your time tonight. Cody did want to point out that I did misspeak on the kick returners. So he says Andre Roberts and Cordell Patterson have return man, which isn't jukebox, but it's human joystick, but it's only on kick returns. That means they can change direction without sacrificing speed. Human joystick was OP last season. And you know what? Cody gives me a great final topic to kind of go round table on. Stokes, if I gave you a team of star players in Madden, but I said you could pick one position and give one player a superstar ability, what ability would you give that position and that player?
So, because I'm me, I would choose joystick, but I feel as if Escape Artist is the best ability in Madden because it affects pretty much everything about the way you can play the game. Now, joystick it is fantastic. Don't let me. I'm not saying it's not. I just think that Escape Artist is a little bit better because you know, whenever you're passing, as soon as you see pressure, you can boom, you're out of the pocket, and even DBs and DNs that are faster than you, they don't seem to catch you, even when you're a slower guy. So I think that can change the way you pass the ball, because if you have a slow developing post route, that was the thing this Madden, the post routes coming across the field where the DBs wouldn't cover it. You roll out and you got the time, and then the post route comes across the field, wide open, touchdown.
I don't see joystick listed in news article. Maybe I'm just missing it. Okay, same question to you, Chef. What is one, if you had a team of stars that you could give one player, one position, one superstar ability?
Okay, all right. Well, I got one on each side of the ball if I can.
Perfect.
All right, I'm gonna start with on the defense side now. Zone hawk. Kevin Byard has zone hawk, if I'm not mistaken. Well, like he basically sees everything. Like he's just like, if you think of the ideal safety, just Ed Reed and everything out there. Anything getting thrown, he's picking it off or disrupting the play one way or another. So that's on defense. Now, on offense, I picked up on this one later on when I finally got to use the Titans. and that's Derrick Henry's armbar. That's like the greatest superstar ability I've ever had in my. It's so over the top and it's so OP and it's ridiculous. Like you just press an X and you spam an X hard as hell and you stiff arming everybody in your way, and nobody can bring you down. And you know you turn a little simple 5-yard dive into a 25-30 yard gain, or you're taking it to the house just by hitting that X and hitting that arm ball right at the right moment, and then you're gone. And it makes a loud superhuman juggernaut noise where it's like. Brrr. And you hit the guy, and you still take off running, and it's deflating for the defense. Getting you got your man lined up, ready to hit stick him or whatever, and you just getting, and you gone. So that was probably my favorite ability of them all, out of 20.
Oh, I agree. I had the Browns and PS4, and I had Nick Chubb for a while, and Stokes.
Oh Lord, have mercy.
Stokes, I was going against your guy Emo, and there's a highlight where I stiff arm 2 or 3 guys, and it's like Thor's hammer just knocking them over, and there's nothing they can do. And I could.
Yeah, I mean, it was so bad that EA had to nerf it a little bit.
Yeah, and that is important to bring up. What Stokes is saying is that what the story I'm describing to you, it got reduced. Like when it first came out, it was so OP, but it was so bad that I even I could have scored, but I stopped 5 yards short of the end zone and waited for another defender to come into the screen, just so I could knock him over.
That's great.
Oh man. Yeah, so Chef mentioned Zone Hawk. The definition of this, and I do want to reiterate what I said earlier if you missed it. I did post a link in our on our Discord on Madden 21 News. It was posted by Madden School. They have every single ability defined and which players have it. So Zone Hawk, zone defenders lock down a part of the field. When they enter the zone, this ability increases the rate of catch knockouts and interceptions while in zone coverage. The only player to have this ability in Madden 21 stock is Devin McCourty.
Yep.
This article is a great resource for picking teams. I'm trying to remember who said it. I think it may have been Chef, it may have been Lara. I would say when it comes to these abilities, I would not worry as much about what was OP in 20, it's going to be OP in 21. I would more so read these and think to yourself, does this sound like something that I can really take advantage of the way I play? Like, I'm a runner, so I totally felt what Stokes said about Jukebox versus Escape Artist. Like, Escape Artist is really cool, and it's a lot of fun. Like, you take Deshaun Watson, who has the same exact speed as Josh Allen, and it feels like Mike Vick versus Vinny Testaverde when you're scrambling out of the pocket. But I realized that over a 16-game season, and when I'm going head up against guys like Stokes and Nino and Joker, it's in my blood that I'm going to run the ball. So no matter how much fun Deshaun Watson is, Escape Artist is not going to be something that I'm going to fully take advantage of. So I can read down these abilities, think about how I like to play Madden, and which one of these really reach out to me. Laura, same question to you that I've given these other two. If I could give you one superstar ability to give a team, give a player, if you want to do both sides of the ball, which position, which ability would you take in Madden 21?
So for offense, I don't know if it would be me specifically, but joystick was the most game-breaking ability that I saw last year, really. It was stupid. And then on defense, I personally liked having an enforcer, but one of the pass rush abilities was kind of nice too.
All right, and I think I'm going to follow up with New. He's the guy that writes a lot of these articles for Madden School. I want to say he's the owner of Madden. I don't know if he wants people to know that, whatever. But he posts a lot of Madden School stuff. And I'm going to see if maybe joystick was taken out of the game because I don't see it in his article.
Oh, wait. Something in Discord. Somebody has it
right now.
Nobody has it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
oh, that's
no
what
one
it is.
had it. No one had it stocked in 20 either.
So, okay, that's what it is. No player currently has human joystick. Ball carriers with this ability can quickly shift momentum, change direction, turn the corner without sacrificing speed. And you know what I was just thinking about? It's kind of funny how some of these abilities play into the other ones. So if you have Escape Artist, and then you have, I think it's Deadeye, where if you're on the run,
Deadeye.
Yeah, so yeah, dashing deadeye. So you already can roll out faster, and then if you're on the run, you throw with more precision. Like marrying those two together, you get an unstoppable force at quarterback if you know what you're doing.
Hmm.
One
Yeah.
thing I want to say is um, a lot of people are afraid that abilities have turned Madden into an arcade mode. I don't believe that to be the case. I think what abilities have done is it's given players context outside of the attributes, and it's made things matter more than just speed, throw power, pass rush moves, hit power. It's made guys have more of a true like individual personality on the field, and I think we've all been waiting for years. You know, for the longest time, Ray Lewis was just a guy in Madden. Like he never had the most speed. He had good hit power, but there was never like I never took the Ravens because I wanted to control Ray Lewis. But Ray Lewis in this Madden setting would just be a nightmare. Like he would be so much fun to have on your team because he would be causing fumbles left and right. I think they're a
Hmm.
lot of fun. Chef, I know you've mentioned that your league is having a conversation about whether to have abilities on and off. I believe AFL's lean towards keeping them on, but
Hmm.
what are your thoughts on that topic as far as what we're hoping to be a sim environment with these abilities?
I purposely love abilities. Like they just add that extra, cherry on top of, the game. Like I enjoy Madden 20. It had its moments, early on where like it just. But I'm sorry. I mean, let me rephrase. It's just after a while, because which is in every league for the most part. After a while, everything just seems too much. Like the question about how much XP. Is being distributed, and then that turns into everybody having super overpowered teams by season 6 season. Sir, go ahead. Okay, sorry, I'm talking to my son.
Hey, it's
But
AFL Dad Life League. We get it.
no doubt. Oh boy, but yeah. As far as abilities in general, I like them. It's just the problem with like the only problem I got is if you end up having too many people with too many abilities. If you got 11 guys on the field and 9 of them have some sort of a superstar X factor, it kind of sucks because it's like it's like you walking uphill,
Hmm.
and and it's kind of a burn, and it pretty much it brings down morale to everybody except for that guy who has 11 players on superstar. My son is calling me. I gotta step off for a second. I'm gonna hit this question back, but I'll be back in a second.
All right. I will say, and Laura, you saw this as a guy who commissioned a league that went 12 leagues. Uh, Do not take drafts off. Do not just be like, well, I can't make the draft, so I'm gonna let the computer draft for me, or I'm gonna trade all of my picks for a 60, a 36-year-old. I'm trying
What?
like Akeem Hicks in season 8, like Stokes would do.
What are you
I'm
talking
still
about?
bitter. I'm still bitter. Stokes beat me by trying to keep the league going long enough so his team would all retire, and they retired when we retired.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, I just year after year, where's the old guys? Just keep on plugging and playing with old people. It's fun.
I think it's definitely added an element to being a GM. You really can't let your best players go. Your best players matter, even if it's a position that you don't normally prioritize. If you have a superstar right tackle, you don't want to let him go for pennies on the dollar. Where in previous Maddens you could just collect a bunch of speed, you could just scout the combine and collect the fastest guys. I think it puts
Sorry about
you have to know what kind of team you want to build and collect abilities onto that. Laura, you oversaw a league that went 13 seasons, and to your guys' credit, I will say to your credit, you guys did everything under the sun to basically figure out what these abilities did. You did rerolls. You let guys do certain things where they could just test the threshold of each ability, which I think gives you guys such a head start going into Madden 21, knowing what worked, what didn't work. What do you think about abilities and their place in sim football leagues?
I personally am a big fan of abilities because I think those dev games kept a lot of the players who don't have good records playing all year. So just for that chance of getting another guy with an ability or something like that, because this is the first year in several years where we didn't get a couple seasons in, and we're just kind of like, hey guys, we got to keep playing after 13 weeks or whatever. Everybody
Right.
played pretty much every game, all the way up until the last season was when it started getting to be a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But it was June, so I wasn't complaining too much. But yeah, I think they're best though when they're not too many of them, because when it's like, hey, I need to do what I need to do to go stop Julio Jones. That's when I think abilities are more fun, and then when if it's too many, then it just becomes kind of like an arms race. Everybody needs to get abilities to stop these other abilities, and it just becomes a constant mess, kind of.
Yeah, if you have 5 Julio Jones and Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, then it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, Magic, I'm going to give you one last chance to ask any questions you might have that have popped up, but I feel like we've covered a lot of ground tonight, so I personally am good. How are you doing?
So if someone has this stiff arm you to hell ability, how do I protect myself from that?
Personally, I guess you hope that they hit the button too fast, and then you wait a second, like you kind of strafe with them a little bit. If they hit the button, you see his arm go out. After like a second, then go in for the tackle. If you got like a Jamal Adams or something, pop him real quick, because he's probably one of the few guys that can get away from, that won't get a stiff arm.
So it's not like there's some defensive ability that negates.
They actually. Oh, yes, there is one. I can't think of the name of it right now, but there is one. In fact, I think Jamal Adams might be one of the guys that has it, where like anybody's superstar ability won't affect them. Like if you got human joystick or whatever, or jukebox, you try to juke a guy, that guy can still get the tackle.
Okay. Yeah,
so there are a couple of abilities that allow. So there's one called Unfakeable that allows you to not be juked or spun upon, but I don't know whether that refers to stiff arm. But I know it allows you to not always be faked by a juke or a spin. And there's another one called Secure Tackler, which allows you to do the X tackle, the conservative tackles from further away. So you might be able to trigger that X tackle before you get stiff armed. But the armbar itself is still a timing thing. You still have to time it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a key too, Magic. What I noticed in my time with Nick Chubb, it wasn't like I could just get the ball and just start mashing X. Like you had to actually hit a hole, get some open field, and actually get in position to stiff arm somebody. So it still needs to be a quality run. Like you're not just going to get the ball and then stiff arm Nick Bosa as he tries to tackle you at the line of scrimmage. You have to have the right angle on the guy. Armbar, ball carriers with this ability have more powerful stiff arm animations. In the game right now, Joe Mixon and Derrick Henry have those.
No Nick Chubb.
No Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb has balance beam, which is avoid stumbling when carrying the ball. Interesting. Then there's something
like that. You got to balance.
Something Cody just posted was regarding Enforcer. So Enforcer, that is a crazy ability.
Oh Lord, yes.
It allows basically hit sticks anytime. If you just let the computer go, the computer's going to hit stick the guy every single time. And as we know, hit sticks cause lots and lots of fumbles, and it makes you really nervous when you're running the ball, and especially if you see a team that has 3 or 4 guys with Enforcer, and you're really nervous when you're moving.
Oh, that's just some regular one that you get.
Joker.
Yeah, so that's just it's an superstar ability.
Yeah.
So Nick Chubb has something called Bruiser, which sounds like a better version of armbar to me. It says, and guys, this is all in the Madden School article I posted. Everything I'm reading here is word for word. This is going to be, to me, such a great resource for anybody, but definitely for the guys that aren't around. So Bruiser says ball carriers have this ability have more powerful truck and stiff arm animations. So is that like 2 abilities in one? Is that the way you guys are thinking?
It sounds like it to me.
Interesting.
Yeah. That sounds like that's like a juggernaut there.
Universal coverage was a mixture between man up and zoned out. So that's both of those abilities combined. And I forget the one for the pass rusher. What is it? Pass rush elite. That combines power specialist and finesse specialist. So there are some abilities that are combinations of others, and it sounds like that one is another one as well.
All right. Well, does anybody have anything else they want to bring up regarding abilities that we haven't talked about tonight? I'll just go roundtable style. Laura, you have anything that we haven't covered that you think would be important to mention?
No, I think you guys got everything.
Chef?
Yeah, everything is good, bro. Everything was covered on both sides of the ball, and I hope that helped those guys who took the year off.
And Stokes, how about you?
I am good.
All right. Well, and Magic, I know your last question was the one you had. Is there any other questions you had before we sign off?
No.
All right. Well, this is the last podcast we will do until before we start getting the lists in, and the next podcast we do will be in about a week and a half when we do our first 8 teams being revealed. The date for that will be set. Magic and Stokes are regulars on here. Tonight we did do it on PS4 chat because I felt like it would be better to be able to scroll through on PlayStation, but the majority of our podcasts are going to be within Discord, which will allow people to hop in if they want. Chef, can't thank you enough for hopping in tonight. You were a great resource, and we hope that you're not a stranger on the podcast. We'd love to have you back anytime you want.
Thank you, man. I'm glad to be a part of things.
And I'm not going to break any personal news for you, but we are all happy for you, those of us that talked to you offline.
Yeah, no doubt. I appreciate that. I had to think about it for a second.
Yeah. Many happy thoughts your way. And then Laura, I appreciate you hopping in too, another great resource and a guy that I know a lot of guys in AFL are familiar with because they're in your league.
All right.
You wanna break any news tonight on when we can expect some PS4 Madden 21 team selection news? Or not ready for that yet?
Well, we haven't even started signups yet because I'm dragging that out. So.
Well,
we just stopped. So like.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I'm taking my break.
You had a league that went 13 seasons, and you had to deal with Nino and Stokes. So I think you're allowed to have a little bit of a break.
We'll probably start signups at the at the end of July, basically, and then start going from there.
And those of you that are in PS4 and AFL, we are going to try to make a concentrated effort to reveal owners that are in both leagues teams first, because there's going to be guys that like, oh, if I get the Chargers in this league, I don't want them in a second league. That feels redundant. So we're going to try to do our best to not have you be in the PS4 draft not knowing who you got in AFL, and then all of a sudden you're doubled up. So we're going to try to take care of you guys there. All right, Chef, Laura, Magic, Stokes, thanks so much for joining tonight. Guys, thanks for listening. We hope this was as helpful to you as I feel like it was for me. Any more questions, always bring them up in chat. Guys are always in there. Danny and Joker are great resources, even though they don't want to put a voice to themselves. I know Laura's always happy to answer questions. Chef is always willing. Stokes is willing. So I hope this was good for you, and we will see you guys next time on AFL Podcast number 4.